like it or not, following your calling, following your dream involves other people. But those other people might not behave the way that you expect them to do. And it might be your fault. Why is that? Well, that's our question today. Hi, and welcome again to another episode of the Eternity Changer Show. My name is Paul Allen Clifford, and I've got just a few thoughts for you on helping you chase your dream, chase your calling, and become what you're supposed to be. So if you have any questions or comments, head on over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/contact. There you'll find all my contact information, and you can even leave your comment or question right there. A lot of people already have. Or, if you're more of an email person, paul@trinitydigitalmedia.com. Prefer to give me a call, 1-877-763-3246. That's 1-877-POD-ECHO. And if you're watching this video, chances are there are comments below. If you're on YouTube, of course there are. If you're on my website, trinitydigitalmedia.com, there are comments there as well. So I would love it if you would leave your comment there. One other thing I wanted to tell you before we get going is that Eternity Changers and all the ChurchTechCast.com shows are generously provided for by viewers like you. Thank you. Head on over to patreon.com/PaulAllenCliff. That's patreon.com/PaulAllenCliff, and you can support the show for as little as $1 a month. Every little bit helps, and this past month I was able to use some of the funds to contract with someone to make a new open for the entire network. So we'll see that very soon. I was actually thinking I might see it by today, but I haven't, so keep your eyes open for that. So let's talk about culture. Culture is something that a lot of entrepreneurs, leaders, etc. just don't think about because it's not an obvious thing. You think about, how am I going to get in enough money to pay everyone? You think about, what's my product, what's the ROI, what's my unique value proposition, those kinds of business things. But a lot of times you don't think about culture, and it's really kind of sad that you don't, because culture can define and it can manipulate whether the other things that you're more concerned about actually happen. Let me give you a couple of examples. My wife used to work for a property management firm, and that company paid pretty well. They were a decent sized company. They had decent benefits. Everything on the outside looked like it was a great fit for her. But when she actually started working there, there were telltale signs that something was amiss. First off, a lot of people in the owner's family worked there, which there's nothing wrong with that, except it seemed as though those people weren't exactly qualified for what they were doing. And it also seemed like no one was willing to talk about it in front of the owner. It wasn't that they were saying, oh yeah, well, this person's a college student and they'll grow into it. No, it was a middle-aged person that was, in fact, having problems doing this person doing their job, and yet the thing was that no one would address it. No one wanted to help him get better. No one would bring it up with the owner, because part of the culture was you don't question the family. Another part of the culture was, we have certain policies that you do not break. But those policies weren't apparently the most important policies. So my wife was actually fired from this company for not turning in a check that she'd gotten sometime that particular day. So instead of saying, oh, well, you turned it in tomorrow, that's cool. It wasn't the case that it was, please turn it in sometime within 48 hours, within a couple of days. It was, if you don't turn it in by the end of the day that you receive it, you will be fired. And so she was. There were a lot of people that were fired for things that were seemingly minor, forgetting to turn in a check on time, leading strongly for their subordinates, questioning the people that were on the inside. There was a culture of fear at this company. And since there was a culture of fear, they had reached a ceiling in what they could accomplish. Now, the owner didn't know that there was a culture of fear. The owner didn't know that they'd reached a ceiling. The owner just thought he'd had a bunch of bad luck in getting employees. Yeah. After a certain time, you need to think, is it bad luck, or am I the cause of my bad luck? And that's what was going on there. Let me tell you another story. The last corporate job I worked at, we were encouraged all the time about how great we were as a department. I worked in tech support, and everyone from the top level executives that we would meet all the way on down would say, you guys are great. No one can do what you do. I talk to other people from other companies and they say, how do you get such great tech support people? Etc., etc. Great stuff. And then the corporation that owned that company decided to make some changes, make some layoffs. And in one day, that culture was broken. The way the culture was broken is the message went from, you guys are so great, no one can do what you do, to, with one announcement, you guys are easily replaceable by people we can train quickly and pay less money to. Now, on top of that, they wanted all of us to stay and do a good job for a certain amount of time while they trained these replacements. They offered to let us stay on if we would move to a more expensive location for the same amount of money. One person did. That was about 10% of the department. But the rest of us left, and with us, all the accumulated knowledge of how the equipment ran left too, because we went from people who had years of experience to people that had weeks of experience. The basics weren't hard. It was that last 20% that was lost forever, except for the one individual that stayed. And that one individual didn't like doing what he was doing. So that culture was broken quickly. Finally, church culture can be this way. I was a part of a church at one time that had a culture of the status quo. What I mean by that is the idea was that everything must remain the same, no matter what time it was. I was a part of this culture in 2000, not in the 80s, not in the 70s, not even before that. Although before that I wasn't born, but not a long time ago, but in 2000 I was part of this church's culture. And they had the culture that nothing could change. The pastor was trying to make changes, but that was met with firm resistance. Firm resistance. And he eventually was kicked out of the church because he dared to change how things were done. Not the message, not anything that they said was important, but how they liked it done. I drove by that church recently and found that one of the sacred cows had been sold. One of the sacred cows in an adjoining building that the de facto leadership of the church refused to do anything with was no longer part of the church. It's kind of sad because it was a prime location and so much could have been done, but instead it was used 1 hour a week for the de facto leadership to meet. Sad. So, culture can really affect what a leader wants to accomplish. In my church, we have quite the opposite culture. We have a culture of change. You expect things to change, to grow, to be tweaked, to be improved. Are they always improved? No. Sometimes mistakes are made. That's just the way that it is. But you don't expect, oh, we're going to do this exactly the same way for years and years. It's been said that the most worrying sentence you can hear is, we don't do it that way around here. And it's true, because that way might be a better way. Now, it might be a worse way, but most of the time you don't know. You just have a preference that keeps things from moving forward. You should know that there are certain cautions related to culture. First off, cultures are not built quickly. They're built slowly over time, but they can be destroyed quickly. One sentence destroyed the culture at the job that I worked at. One sentence said, oh, I know we told you you were valuable, but we lied. One sentence. Culture isn't what you say, it's what you do. So you can say all day long, well, the handbook says that we do this. Company rules say that we do that. But if what is actually done is in stark contrast to that, that is your actual culture versus your theoretical culture, or maybe aspirational culture. Your actual culture trumps your aspirational culture. One bad hire can wreck a culture. Don't hire someone that doesn't fit into the culture because they're perfect in every other way. Because the one person that stayed in that company that I told you about earlier, he knew his stuff, but he hated his job. And he did not enjoy talking to the customers. And time again, I keep hearing about people that interacted with him that determined never to buy from the company again. And that spread. A single bad actor can spread a negative culture. Fear is the enemy of a good culture. I just heard this yesterday on the EntreLeadership podcast. Simon Sinek was talking about an incident that he'd had where a gate agent at a certain airline had yelled at a passenger and basically treated them like dirt. And he asked, why did you treat that person like that? And the gate agent said, I'm afraid that if I don't follow the rules, that I will lose my job. It was entirely a fear-based decision. It wasn't, how can I maximize revenue for this company over the long term. It was, how do I protect myself? And that's a symptom of a very bad culture, a culture that's afraid of doing whatever it takes, a culture that's afraid of making what they call in the military leadership moral decisions, moral leadership decisions, doing what's right even if it's going to cost you. Well, they've made it quite clear that what's right isn't what they care about. What's right is detrimental to the bottom line, so do not do what's right. Do what we say. So that is a problem with leadership. That's a problem with their culture. Rebuilding or shifting culture must be done slowly, but started quickly. Don't let bad culture stay in your organization very long. As soon as you recognize it, start attacking bad culture. But meet every attempt at resistance as if your business, your dream, your calling is on the line, because it is. If you make the decision to allow someone to gossip, if that's against your company culture, to instill fear in your workers, if that's against the culture you want to lead, that will speak loudly, more loudly than what you actually say. So meet that as resistance to pursuing your dream. Meet it as if it's a life or death issue. Culture matters more than your handbook, and it's the de facto way of how things are done. So what I mean by that is, when you're looking at how people are interacting with you, when you're looking at what people are saying, it really, really, really matters what they're actually doing. A group I'm a part of says, it doesn't matter what is said, it matters what is done. And I think that that's important, because when you have created a culture in your calling of what is really important, a lot of things will just take care of themselves. If your culture is, the rules are here for most situations, but on occasion you might need to break them for the good of the company, for what's right and what's moral, you'll get better results than if your culture is, I will meet any resistance to following the rules with quick, decisive punishment. You're just going to have a different culture. Do you want that kind of culture? Or do you want a loving, grace-giving culture? A culture where everyone is a family, not where we only jealously guard those who are part of our own. I suspect you want the latter. And if you do, that is how you'll change eternity. Till next time, I'm Paul Allen Clifford with TrinityDigitalMedia.com.